The book was in her lap. She had read no further. The power to change one's life comes from a paragraph, a lone remark. The lines that penetrate us are slender, like the flukes that live in river water and enter the bodies of swimmers. James Salter. Have you ever had the experience of reading a book and suddenly something becomes crystal clear? An old belief you've carried for years gets challenged in a way you never expected. Not long ago, I was reading The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield when I came across this passage. Self-doubt can be an ally. This is because it serves as an indicator of aspiration. It reflects love of something we dream of doing and desire to do it. And I stopped because if I'm being honest, the idea caught me completely off guard. I had always believed self-doubt was something negative, something to overcome, something standing in the way. But suddenly, that belief no longer felt complete. And the more I sat with it, the more I realized something surprising. I had never once considered that there might be another side to self-doubt. Not once. And yet, the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Now, according to the dictionary, self-doubt is described as a lack of faith in oneself, a feeling of doubt or uncertainty about one's abilities, actions, or decisions. And yes, self-doubt can absolutely become imprisoning. It can stop people from speaking, trying, leaving, beginning, creating, and trusting themselves. But I started asking myself something I had never considered. What if self-doubt is not always the enemy? What if sometimes it appears because something deeply matters to me? And the more I sat with that question, the more I began looking at self-doubt differently. Because if we're honest, self-doubt is deeply human. Almost everyone experiences it at some point. Before speaking up, before trying something new, before making a difficult decision, maybe before leaving something familiar, and definitely before beginning again. And yet somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that self-doubt means we should stop, that it means we're not ready, not capable, not smart enough, not strong enough, and definitely not qualified. But what if self-doubt is not always telling us to turn back? What if sometimes it simply appears at the edge of change? Because self-doubt does not appear out of nowhere. We learn it, sometimes through criticism, through humiliation, sometimes through failure, and even through comparison. And sometimes it comes from living in environments where trusting yourself did not feel safe. When your thoughts are questioned long enough, you begin questioning yourself. When your feelings are dismissed long enough, you begin dismissing yourself. When your instincts are mocked, controlled or ignored, certainty begins to feel dangerous. So, what many women call weakness may actually be conditioning. Over time, self doubt can become more than a feeling. It can become the atmosphere a woman lives inside, where she second guesses her decisions, her memories, her needs, her desires, her voice. Eventually, she no longer asks, "Is this true?" She asks, "What if they were right about me?" But even with all of that being true, I still kept coming back to Stephen Pressfield's words: self doubt can be an ally. And I kept asking myself, how? How could something that has held so many women back possibly contain anything useful? And slowly, something began to emerge. You see, self doubt often gets loudest when something matters deeply to us. Not when we're disconnected, not when we've given up, and definitely not when we've stopped caring. It tends to appear when we are standing at the edge of something meaningful, like the moment a woman considers leaving, the moment she speaks honestly, the moment she sets a boundary, the moment she starts asking, "What do I want? What do I need? What kind of life do I actually want to live?" That's when self doubt rushes in, because she's stepping beyond the identity she learned to survive inside. Abuse and trauma often shape our identity through adaptation. We become the peacekeeper, definitely the caretaker. We are the appeaser. We absorb the pain. We also become the performer and definitely the invisible one. And those identities are not created because a woman is weak. They're created because they helped her survive. They helped her avoid conflict. They helped her stay connected, maintain safety, predict reactions, and keep the peace. They even helped her disappear when disappearing felt safer than being fully seen. But eventually, the woman who survived that way begins wanting more honesty, more peace, more freedom, more of herself. And that is often the exact moment self doubt flares. Not because growth is wrong, but because growth feels strange. Becoming visible to yourself after years of surviving through adaptation can be terrifying. And maybe that changes the question entirely. Maybe the question is not, how do I get rid of self doubt? Maybe the question becomes, what is my self doubt trying to tell me? What if self doubt is not always proof that you should stop? What if sometimes it is evidence that something inside you wants more? I think many women believe confidence comes first, that one day she will suddenly feel certain, fearless, completely ready. But that's rarely how transformation happens. Most of the time, women move forward while they're trembling. They begin with questioning themselves. They speak while they're afraid. They try while they're uncertain. That doesn't mean that they're doing it wrong. It simply means you're human. That is not failure. That is courage. And courage is far more accessible to women than becoming confident. The goal is not to eliminate self-doubt completely. The goal is to stop automatically believing it. Stop automatically obeying it. And stop treating every fearful thought as truth. Maybe the next time self-doubt appears, instead of immediately trying to push it away, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what am I standing at the edge of? What part of me is trying to emerge here? What matters to me so deeply that fear showed up beside it? Because sometimes self-doubt is not the voice of truth. Sometimes it's simply the voice of familiarity trying to pull you back toward the life you already know. And maybe the presence of self-doubt does not mean that you're incapable. Maybe it means you're standing at the threshold of becoming someone you were never allowed to be before. So maybe self-doubt is not always the dragon we believed it was. Maybe it's the trembling that happens when a woman begins reclaiming herself. Maybe it appears when she starts imagining a different future. It may appear when she starts listening to her own voice. It could appear when she starts stepping beyond survival and towards something more honest, more alive, more fully her own. And maybe the goal is not to wait until all uncertainty disappears. Maybe the goal is learning that uncertainty does not have to make the decisions for you. Because the things that matter most to us will often ask something vulnerable from us. Visibility, honesty, risk, change, and definitely growth. And yes, sometimes self-doubt will rise beside those things. But perhaps that does not always mean stop. Perhaps it simply means this deeply matters to me. May I ask you to close your eyes and place your hands on your heart. Take a breath. May you begin to see self-doubt with gentler eyes. May you stop treating every fearful thought as proof that you are incapable. May you remember that the identities you created to survive are not the full measure of who you are. May you allow yourself to become visible to your own heart again. And when uncertainty rises, may you pause long enough to ask, what if this fear is not here to stop me? What if I am simply standing beside something that matters deeply to me? And may you discover, one small courageous choice at a time, that the life calling to you never required perfect confidence, only your willingness to begin. Open your eyes. And that's enough for today.